I mean, every presidential candidate in the modern era has released his or her tax returns, including, I mean, back to Nixon, right? And when Nixon set that precedent, he was under audit. So it's not, being under audit is not an excuse to not release your tax returns. The IRS says if you're under audit, you're totally allowed to release your tax returns, and previous presidents and presidential candidates have. Donald Trump is running for president in part on the basis of his financial acumen and saying that the system is rigged. And there's been a lot of really troubling reporting about his business practices as well. You know, I mean, a lot of stuff that may or may not have been followed all the way to its conclusion. But talk about raising questions. There has been stuff. Why should this audit out only apply to him? I mean, everybody else has released their tax returns. Why
that's the conclusion that his lawyers and accountants have made and the advice they've given him, and he's respecting that advice. But I also
do you respect it? Do you think that he should release his tax returns?
Well, I do respect it only because I once thought, oh, transparency, release your tax returns. Yeah. But the fact is, now that I'm there, I hear what the advice that the lawyers and the accountants have given. But I don't think that we need to see his tax returns to verify his financial acumen. I walk into the Trump Tower every day and I'm like, this guy did pretty well for himself before I got here.
But I want to know if he pays taxes.
And he, well, look, you know what you want to know, Rachel? We all want to know what taxes we would pay under his tax plan. That's what's supposed to Americans.
Trust me, I really, literally want to know if he pays taxes. What I have here is a copy of Donald Trump's tax returns. We have his federal tax return for 1 year, for 2005. I believe this is the only set of the president's federal taxes that reporters have ever gotten a hold of. What we have are these 2 pages, front and back, from the same 1040 form that you might have filled out when you file your taxes. And in terms of what's on here, let me give you the basics. Aside from the numbers being large, these pages are straightforward. He paid $38 million, looks like $38 million in taxes. He took a big write-down of $103 million. More on that later. If you add up the lines for income, he made more than $150 million in that year. Mazel tov. We got these pages. We got this document today from a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist who's better on financial matters than almost anybody else in the business. His name is David K. Johnston. These pages turned up the other day in his mailbox. David will join us live here in just a moment. But because nobody has had the president's taxes before, we didn't know what to expect. When we showed this 2005 return to the White House to ask them if it's real, we sent this over to the White House tonight, and the White House responded basically with, yep. I'm going to read you the White House statement on this tonight. Quote, before being elected president, Mr. Trump was one of the most successful businessmen in the world, with a responsibility to his company, his family, and his employees to pay no more tax than legally required. That being said, Mr. Trump paid $38 million, even after taking into account large-scale depreciation for construction on an income of more than $150 million, as well as paying tens of millions of dollars in other taxes, such as sales and excise taxes and employment taxes. And this illegally published return proves just that. Despite this substantial income figure and tax paid, it is totally illegal to steal and publish tax returns. The dishonest media can continue to make this part of their agenda, while the president will focus on his, which includes tax reform that will benefit all Americans. White House statement for tonight.